All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Jewish Inspiration Podcast. We are in the 22nd gate of the Orchos Tzaddikim, the Ways of the Righteous, in the Treasure for Life edition on page 683. We are talking about the gate of falsehood. What is falsehood? We know falsehood is when someone doesn't speak the truth. The Torah tells us, midvar, sheker, tirchak, from something which is false, stay away from it. Distance yourself from falsehood. Now, we're going to learn a whole chapter by the Orchos Tzaddikim about this topic. What does he say? Sheker da. Know about falsehood. Ki kasher yishkol adam kesev izov b'muznayim u'mavchin bein kal lekaved. Just as a person weighs silver and gold on the scales and distinguishes between the light and the heavy, kach yishkol ha'adam ha'chacham b'muznayim lahavin sheker v'emes. So too must a wise person always weigh the scales to understand truth and falsehood. It's an important tool for today. If we knew that, we'd be a little bit less anxious when we watch the news. You have to know what's falsehood, what's fake, and what's real, and what's truth. V'yesh chiluk ben sheker l'sheker. There's different types of falsehoods. Keitzad, how does a person do this? Ha'omer al eitz shehu zahav oso sheker yaduahu. So if someone says an obvious falsehood, which is that this tree is gold, it's a golden tree, so everybody knows that that's not true. That there's things that everybody knows, everybody is aware of that falsehood. Ha'omer al nechoshes klal kolal shehu zahav, someone who points at something which is copper or brass and says that it is gold. Also, sheker tzarech avchana. Well, that I need to look. I need to just ensure. I need to investigate a little bit just to ensure that it requires distinction, because sometimes they can look similar in appearance. Also, sheker tzarech avchana ki yesh l'shneim dmus achas, because they have this metal look. So it might look. You might be confused whether it is or is not the gold or the copper. So v'yesh zayfanim ha'osim dmus hanachoshes kidmus azav. Why? Because there's things that people can do that can forge gold. They can make the copper look like gold. So that a person needs to be a little bit more careful about, more scrupulous. And even some professionals can't just look and say, "Oh, this is brass. Maybe it's gold." They don't know. They have to. Sometimes they can be tricked as well. Kach inyan machshava yesh mefulpol ve'oses voros l'kayim hasheker ad shenirushu emes. There are those who are very sophisticated people, and they can manufacture rationalizations to bolster falsehoods until it appears to be truth. It appears to be truth. It looks like it's true, and really it's not. Aval ha'chacham, but the wise person, mevin kol echad lahavdil ben hasheker ben ha'emes. A wise person is able to distinguish between what is true and what is false. And we need to be cautious, and we need to take the time to distinguish between what is real and what is fake. V'zeh davar yadu alakol, and this is something that we all know. Shahasheker v'emes tzfufim b'leva adam, that truth and falsehood need to be discerned in one's heart. The person needs to be careful and cautious. Sometimes they're a little bit attached and we're confused. It's hard to tell the right from the wrong. Yesh adam mizuyef. There are some people who are fake. They come across as they're con men. They're a con. They say, "Oh, I got this great investment for you. I got this great idea for you." And they're cons. They're fake. They're fraudulent. And there are times that you know that it's false, you know that it's fake, and you still get drawn to it. And many times where you'll have proofs to know that this is false, and still you get drawn in. Shedoma lios emes. It has we think that it's true, or we want to believe in it. We want to believe that it's true. There are times that we will be drawn to this falsehood. But then there is a truthful person who will not be drawn after falsehood whatsoever, unless he can find some rationalizations. But the wise man, in his wisdom, will deny these rationalizations. So there's I give you an example. There are some times where we see things in the world, and you wonder, how do people think like that? Like, who thought that communism, for example, in the Soviet Union, who thought that was a good idea? Who voted for that? Who thought? And then you see there are people today who say, we need communism in New York City. We need communism coming out of our universities, etc. Right? Because even though they're intellectual people, usually going into university, but they slip in some rationalization that this would be equality, and in a way, it almost like draws the heart. It's like, wow. We'll be able to make sure that there are no poor people. We'll be able to make sure that everyone has the same thing and no one's going to be better than the other. No one's going to be more privileged than the other. We have this rationalization, and then capitalism gone, freedom gone. We're ready to give away everything because of this rationalization, which, by the way, Korach was a communist too. Kol ha'eda kulam kadoshim. Right? What did Korach say? Everybody's holy. We don't need a leader. We don't need you, Moses. We don't need you, Aaron. We don't need anybody to guide us. We're all holy. We're all equal. This idea, this flawed notion that there's something called equality. There is no equality. And this is the challenge that people have such a hard time with. We have so many wonderful people here on the broadcast. None of you are equal. You're all unique and special and different. And that's the beauty. If we all looked exactly the same, if we all, there would be no specialty. There would be no, we wouldn't be able to feel proud. Look at me, I'm different. I'm special. But we have this false rationalization where we're saying to ourselves, no, it'll be good. And people can be, even sometimes intelligent people, can be drawn to such falsehood. By the way, we say that Korach was a communist. That's why, by the way, Moshe prayed. You see in this week's parasha, last week, and so many of the portions of the Torah where the Jewish people or groups of the Jewish people sinned. And we see that Moshe prayed to Hashem saying, Hashem, please forgive them. Hashem, please restore them. Hashem, let's find a way to get atonement. The Jewish people sinned with the golden calf, and they complained about the food. They complained about the manna. They complained about this. They fought about this. They cried about the spies and their report. It was constant issues. Moshe prayed for all of them except for one, Korach. What happened to Korach? Why didn't Moshe pray for Korach? Let Hashem, please forgive him. He didn't. Because that's the danger of communism. You need to have nothing to do with it. It's pure evil, but it's packaged in this rationalization that it's going to be good for all mankind. So I know this broadcast is going to go on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all these. I might get some hate, but you know what? We're in the chapter where we're talking about falsehood. We have to identify a falsehood, right? We can't take the shades and just block ourselves from it. You should know that the rationalization of all people are drawn by their traits. Shekol adam nishach b'svorosav achar midosav ha'otzel yasakol svorosav achar atzlos v'chein hakasan achar kaso. So people rationalize their behavior. Someone who's lazy rationalizes laziness. Someone who's has a bad temper rationalizes his anger. No, he's wrong, and he has to learn, and I have to teach him, and I have to, right? So in their anger, they rationalize their negative traits. Someone who has arrogance and is haughty rationalizes his haughtiness and his arrogance. And all of the traits that we talked about before, there's a way for a person to rationalize and justify what it is that he's doing, even though it's wrong. Oh, I rationalized it. It's okay. Lefi hamida sheyesh bo hu oses sforos. Based on the traits that one has, they rationalize. Hapazron al hapazronos, hatzaikon es al hatzaikanos, haohev lefi ahavoso, hasona lefi sinoso. He says everyone draws their own rationalization to what they're doing. The rationalization of the extravagant is drawn by his extravagance. Oh, you know why I should buy this yacht because, and they justify it with whatever. And you know why I should drive this car because, again, we have to talk about each trait on its own merits or lack thereof. But, the miserly man rationalizes his miserliness, the lover by his love, the hater by his hate. Therefore, lefikach adam sherotz lios isha Elohim amiti, anyone who wishes to be a true man of Hashem, tzorich lahasir tchila mimeno kol amidos agros. The first thing, if you want to be a godly person, you need to rid yourself of all your defective traits. You need to cleanse yourself from your bad traits. Kidei shelo timshacheu hamida sheyesh bo lefi inyana, so that you not draw to the direction of your flawed trait. And only when you remove that trait will you be able to attain pure truth. So if we can just bring this to our own lives, we have to understand that we all have our own prejudices. We have things that we want, things that we are drawn to, and we can rationalize it in every way possible. Unless we identify that this is like, imagine someone who's having a challenge in their relationship. So they go to a therapist, and the therapist says, something, perhaps you should improve in this way. Perhaps this will help your relationship. No, I'm right, and I'm doing it because I'm right. And everyone has their rationalizations of why they do certain things. So they're not willing to hear. They're not willing to change. They're not willing to accept. So we have to become a little bit vulnerable to correct that trait. And then we'll see that it was just a rationalization. How many times when we admit that perhaps I was wrong, we say, you know what, I was rationalizing. I was trying to just avoid feeling guilty. And this is a problem. There are 9 categories of liars. The first type of falsehood or lying that exists is one who denies his fellow man's deposit or loan, or who testifies falsely, or many other similar cases like this. What is it? Makrish ba'amito bepikadon o b'halva o shemeid sheker v'kahina rabba. So someone takes out a loan. He says, I never borrowed from you. He doesn't say, I returned it. I never borrowed to begin with. V'kahina rabba, and many such types of examples. V'yesh b'zeh sheker shnei anashim. There are 2 different punishments for such type of ha'echad machmas sheker. First is because he lied, because of the falsehood. And then the second is ki sheker af belo nezek hu to'avas Hashem yisbarach. Shenemar sheish heina sonei Hashem v'sheva to'avos nafsho. Einayim ramos lashon sheker, yofim kizovim at sheker, umeshaleach madonim bein achim. So he brings a verse here from Proverbs that these 6 Hashem hates, and the 7th is an abomination of his soul. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, etc., 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 etc. And then a false witness spouting lies, and one who sows discord among brothers. So the first thing is we need to know that there is the falsehood itself doesn't sit well with God. The fact that someone is able to say something which is false, which is not true, that is a complete separation from Hashem. a complete distance. Hashem is truth. By the way, we know, we talk about truth. We talked about this previously in the chapter, in the Gate of Truth, truthfulness. We mentioned that the letters of the word emet, which is truth, are all letters with two legs, because truth stands forever. But also, the first letter of the alphabet is aleph, the middle is mem, and the last is taf, because it's stability. It will last from the beginning of time till the end of time. Truth, you don't have to make up anything, just the truth. It is the truth, because you don't have to remember what I said last time. If you just are committed to the truth, then everything works out. Falsehood, you always have to find a way to keep it standing. Sheker, the shin, the kuf, and the resh are all the end of the alphabet, but they also only have one leg, because eventually it will fall. Falsehood eventually collapses. It will collapse at the end. God, being the creator of heaven and earth, who exists before time and after time, can only exist because he is truth. What's the name of Hashem? Hashem Elokechem Emet. What is the name of Hashem? Truth. Hashem only survives because of his truth. That's what Hashem, that's his essence. When we depart from that, we're departing from Hashem. We're departing from Hashem. And this is the challenge. It's like when someone lies, what they're doing is they're just distancing and pushing themselves away from God. And what does God say? I hate the mouth that is deceptive. Also from Proverbs. What's the second punishment? The second is the damage that incurred to his fellow man by his lie. So it means there's two things. First is because you distance yourself from God, you sort of contradicted the existence of God. God being the God of truth. Hashem Elokechem Emet. Hashem is truth. And now a person speaks falsehood. So that's number one. The second is that you cause somebody else damage. When you say a lie, whether it being bearing false witness, whether it be saying something that isn't true about someone else that now caused a fight, caused a separation, caused a disagreement, caused someone sorrow, caused someone pain, all because of a lie. That's the second punishment that one will have from speaking falsehood. So this concludes day number 119. And now, my dear friends, we continue on the top of page 688 in the Treasure for Life edition of the Orchos Tzaddikim, the Ways of the Righteous, day number 120. Hasheni, what is the second type of falsehood? Hameshaker ve'ein beguf hasheker nezek lechaver. So what's about a white lie? A white lie, why do people call it a white lie? Because it's inconsequential. It doesn't bother anybody. For example, if you tell your friend, you're telling over a story, and then you exaggerate or you give facts that aren't really facts. You include it in your story, and it just, it just makes the story more exciting, or, but it doesn't really change the story. It doesn't change the fact or the basis of it doesn't change the means no one is hurt by it. You're not causing anyone pain. Why is the person saying this? To curry favor with their friend, or that the person should believe or trust them now, or the person should be off guard, shouldn't hold up their guard against them, because we're just I was able to build build credibility in their eyes, or I was able to build a trust with them. Olav rose. And then as a result of that, this deception, you can now take advantage of this person. Even if you don't. As the verse states in Jeremiah, one speaks peaceably to his neighbor with his mouth, but in his heart he lies in ambush. That means now you can make the other person very vulnerable because you built their trust and their guard is down. Va'af be'eni melech basar v'dam nis of hasheker. Also, it is despicable in the eyes of the human king, the king of flesh and blood, also is disgusted by falsehood. As it is written, Toavas malachim asos resha, ritzon malachim sifsei tzedek. The action of wickedness is an abomination of kings. We're talking about falsehood. And righteous lips are the desire of kings. Tell me the truth. If you ever wonder, presidents, kings, leaders have advisors. Now, they have advisors. The goal of those advisors are not to be yes men. And the goal of those advisors are not to have their ideologies lined up, per se, with that leader. But rather, they're supposed to sometimes be contrary to that leader. Because you want the truth. You want to know how it's going to be perceived. You want to know how it's going to play out. Everyone has their own perspective. And if you're the advisor to a king or to a ruler or to a president, and you just say, yeah, just like you think, I think the same way as you, just giving a rubber stamp to their feelings, you're not doing good for them. Because they need to have the truth of an opposing perspective. So what is the third type of lie? Hashlishi ameshake bechavero lo ligzol mimenu davar shuhu shalo. Tova she'asida lavo lechavero. V'hu mechazar achar osa tova lakachas a love b'sheker beramos. So he says, what's the third category of lie? It consists of those who lie to their fellow man, not to steal from him what is his, but eyeing their fellow man's perspective good and preying upon it to seize it through falsehood and deceit. So, stealing their business deal, hearing, sometimes people do this. They're like, tell me something new about your business. Tell me something just so that they can get a new client, just so that they can take something away that isn't their client per se, but it's a prospective client that now I'm going to make mine. Right? So I'm not taking something away from them, but I'm just pushing that favor my way. Or they may speak lies. Oh, yidaber shkarim lechavero ad sheyiten lematana. He speaks falsehood to his fellow man until he gives him a gift, as by giving him false reports which elicit gifts from him and the like. Presenting false statements about an organization, for example. Someone who's fundraising and they give something which is false, and now someone says, wow, you're doing all of this, I got to support you, I got to give you a donation. But really those things don't exist. This is a falsehood. This is a terrible thing. As the Talmud states, one who employs deception is akin to an idol worshiper. As the verse states in Genesis, perhaps my father will feel me and I will appear to him as a deceiver. What does it say about idolatry? They are vanity, a work of deception. So what's the comparison that we're saying to idolatry? It is not as if he actually served idols. The analogy is similar in that he hides in falsehood and is assisted through deceit. There's trickery. It's hidden. It's not, it's like the Jewish people are committed to something which is really, really phenomenal. Really phenomenal. And I think it's only the Jewish people that have this. And that is truth. What do I mean? In Judaism, we question everything. If you look at the Talmud doesn't have a single line in the Talmud that isn't questioning something. Because if your goal is truth, then you're in the endless pursuit of verification of that truth. There are, as we know, there are other religions that don't allow questions because it's a leap of faith. Or if you ask a question, you're an infidel. You're questioning the faith. We're going to wage jihad against you because you're questioning it. And the questioning of it is a disrespect. That's not the way it is in Judaism. It's not a disrespect. On the contrary, when you're verifying the truth, it's a honor because the truth will stand. We're not worried about it all falling apart because you're pressing for the truth. Oh, stop asking questions. No such thing. You don't see this ever in the Talmud. Ever. We would say, just, you know what? Stop. You cornered me. Leave me alone. Okay, it is what it is because I said so. There's no such thing. No such thing in the entire Talmud. All 2,711 pages of Talmud. Not one time does it say that. On the contrary, the Talmud always goes further and further and further into explaining till you go to the verse in the Torah that you see, okay, here's the proof. Here's the proof. Here's the verification. And that's why we continue asking questions, because we're in a deliberate pursuit of what is the truth. That's what we want. That's it we want. What is the truth? Give me the truth and nothing but the truth. Okay. Haravi, what's the fourth type of falsehood? Hameshaker b'sipur dvarim sheshama, where you relate things that you heard falsely. Umachlif miktsasam umiskaven lahachlif, and you deliberately distort some of them. Ve'ein lo shum revach b'osa sheker, and there's no benefit that comes out of these lies, nor do they damage others. It's similar to what we mentioned before. Or sometimes a person can make everything up. It's all a fictitious story that never happened. There's sometimes that you can meet people, hopefully rare, but there are some people who cannot help themselves. They have to lie. They can't help themselves. You went to the pizza shop, great. And what did you get? It's inconsequential. It doesn't make a difference. They can't say the truth. They can't help themselves. There are people like that. It doesn't damage anybody. It's just they can't help themselves but say something, which is v'yesh la'onesh, such a person who just lies like that, speaks the untruth. There's a punishment to this. She'ohev sheker below to Ellis. He who loves falsehood, even though it serves no end. And this is what King Solomon of blessed memory said in Proverbs: Yofiach gezavim eid sheker, a false witness spouting lies. Meaning, what does that mean? Perush. Im tira ben adam sheyofiach gezavim bidvarov. Yesh l'chol leida shezos hamida tevieu lahoit sheker be'achiv machmas shu oef sheker. He says, meaning, if you see someone spouting lies like that, just senseless lies, meaningless lies, know that this trait will lead him to testify falsely against his brother as a result of his love of falsehood. He can't help himself. You cannot trust such a person because they will always let you down. Why? They just love falsehood. They love lies. Some people unwillingly distort part of what they hear because they don't pay attention when they are listening. They don't investigate and examine the truthfulness of what is being said. This is also not a good trait. And on this King Solomon said, Olav Shalom of blessed memory, but the man who listens shall speak forever. What does that mean? Perush, Misha nosin lev lishma, someone who pays attention, Lahavin tochen ha'inin va'advarim asher yisapru. What does that mean? It means when you hear something, don't just hear it, be attentive. Understand the essence of what is being said. Clarify. Shelo yimtza befiv lashon sheker. That a person should investigate that he not be lying when he repeats it. Oso ha'ish lanetzach yidaber. Such a person will speak forever. Why? Ki yisavu bnei adam lishmoa devarov v'lo yigaru bo al devarov. Because people will trust such a person because they know that he backs up what he says. And they will rely on his words because they know that what they hear is truthful. And they will not rebuke him for them because they know it's truth. So think of the media. How does someone as a reporter get credibility? Not because they're on the loudest microphone. We see that with outlets that are not reliable, and the people don't have credibility, even though they have a bigger footprint out there in the world. But typically what happens is when someone says something and you see that they're accurate and they're correct and they're diligent in proving their facts once and again and again and again and again. So then you gain trust and you say, okay, such a person, I want to hear what they have to say. But then you have people who just give uncorroborated stories. They give with no sources. They give with unidentified, unverified, and unnamed sources. And it's usually fake and false. And this is something that a person needs to be very, very, very cautious about. It doesn't mean you should listen to people on either side of the aisle. You should just seek out the truth. Investigate the truth. Hachamishi, what is the fifth type of falsehood? Ha'omer l'chaver sheyetiv lo, o sheyitin lo matana. A fifth category consists of those who tell their fellow that they will benefit him. I'll give you something. Or give him a gift or assist him in some way, not saying so in a manner that reassures him. And while speaking, thinking in their heart not to give. Means, yeah, I can't even tell you how many times I've heard this from people who have gotten jobs where the person employing them took advantage of them by saying, you know what, you can make, so this is how much money you can make in our company, and you can go so far in this company, and you know obviously it all depends on what you bring in, but we will. And in their heart, they know, in the heart of hearts, they know they're never going to give this person that amount. They're never going to reward them with that kind of money. They're never going to give them that bonus. They're never going to give them that. But they're saying it to try to persuade them to take the job with them. About this, our rabbi said, he should not say one thing with his mouth and another with his heart. A person should be very, very cautious not to be a flatterer. What is a flatterer? A flatterer, we think, is someone who will flatter somebody to curry favor. But it is so also if you say something that you don't believe. Echad bepeh ve'echad belev. You're saying one thing with your words, but really something different with your heart. You don't believe what you're saying. And you're not going to follow through with it. Therefore, sages tell us this is the fifth falsehood that a person needs to stay away from. My dear friends, we're going to continue with this, hopefully either later this week or next week. We'll continue with the continuation of the sixth falsehood, which is on day number 121. My dear friends, have a magnificent day, and thank you so much for joining us today.